I've moved around a lot. I mean, in my childhood, I went from New York to Kentucky. My dad went to Western, so I was here when I was a child, a baby. And Texas, New Jersey, and we moved back to New York when I was 10. After I graduated college with my bachelor's, I actually went to Oregon for 14 years. I moved to Louisville in 2009, and I've been here since. I spent a lot of time in the Red River Gorge, in the Jefferson Memorial Forest, in Bernheim. So I mean, slowly I'm getting to know like what the trees are here, you know, getting to know this place, sandstone, limestone. So I feel much more at home now, especially since I'm writing about this place. You know, it's become part of my lexicon. Paying attention is the one skill that you need. As any artist, you've got to pay attention, you've got to see, because that outward seeing can also be turned inward. You can see your emotions, you can see your thoughts, you can see your life. And then you see your life within this place, and this is the place where I am. So everything's got to be spoken from that place, which is also inside me. From what I start counting when I was 17, I started writing what I would call poems, and I used to write them on pieces of paper that I kept in my pocket. And I would write these things for months, and then after a while I would take my mom's electric Smith Corona in my bedroom and I would type them up and I would make books. I did this for years and years, all the way through college, and then eventually I got to the point where I started sending them out and trying to make books, you know, like that someone else would publish as well. But I did it as a teenager because I think those teenage concerns were just driving me to do something to release, and I chose writing, or it chose me. I've read my whole life, and I just think inevitably, if you're a big reader, like my daughter is right now, she loves to read, and I love that, man, and admire that. But eventually, just you're going to want to do it yourself. You know, I started working with kids like way back a long time ago, but I became a high school teacher. Before that, I was in the AmeriCorps, and I did a lot of projects around education. So I did a creative writing club in a high school. I did a creative writing club in an elementary school. It was very charming, and it was wonderful, these kids. We made books, you know, we kind of, you know, talked our way through writing poems and just had a lot of fun, and invited the parents for, you know, treats and to have them read their poems. Eventually, though, I became a high school teacher. I had always thought that teaching poetry would also teach me how to write poetry, and it does, in fact, in a lot of ways, because, I mean, you really get to focus on these particular things, and then you start to realize, hey, I actually know what I'm talking about here. You know, I mean, I could see things now that I might not have seen by not teaching it. Once I taught a class over on the Shelby campus, just like an adult poetry class. There was only 3 people. 3 women, and one of them was much older than me. I think she was probably in her 70s. She just said this great thing to me after the class, which is, you know, you're going to make it. You're going to do it. You got it. You know, you've got something. And to hear an older woman tell you that felt good. Especially now that all my grandmothers are gone, long gone, you know. So, my daughter, I made a recording of her for her class, reading Wallace Stevens. Just why not? I want to introduce her to poetry. So if anything, I'm going to focus on her, man. She loves Dr. Seuss, and she loves rhyming stuff. She laughs when she reads these books, you know, and when I read them to her. So that's great. Kids love poetry. I've always seen that. I don't want to write about my life. I want to live the kind of life that I imagine to be the right life, not just for me, but for my daughter and for the community. And then I want my poems to grow from that. My poetry has changed because my concerns have changed, and I am now understanding what it is, not just to be a human being, but to be a man, to be a grown-up, to be a father. And that is where all my poetry is coming from now. I don't write young man's poetry anymore. You know, I don't write about, you know, all those great rebellious things, and, you know, I don't want to overthrow the world anymore. I would rather overthrow myself. Poetry is just a tool. It's not a product. It's not a thing that I'm putting down on paper. It's a way for me to map myself, my soul, my emotions, my life and my responses to it. And those older people, they know this. It's not about publishing books even. And man, I've had to struggle with that for a lot of years, and it really ruined my sense of myself as a poet. It ruined my poetry, focusing on using that poetry to find some sort of success. Man, it is not about that at all. It's about me. Now, if I can make a poem that speaks to someone else as well, almost totally by chance, although I hold in my head a little intention to do that, then I find that I am speaking to other people. And it's allowing me to get my map down. And that's the goal of my life, man. I need to map my life because I don't understand it. I don't understand myself. And I haven't understood myself my whole life. I'm only now at 45 beginning to see, like, I know who I am now. And now the poems are going to look different. I know it. They're going to look different now. I think they're going to have much more conviction in them. I think they're going to be much more solid. Yeah, a poem is literally, it's a living being. And I always know which poems are great because whenever I read poetry, man, I always read it out loud. Everybody's poems, including my own when I'm working on them. If I read them out loud and I get tears in my eyes, I've read Hart Crane's Chaplain-esque and burst into tears. I read Spanish poems in Spanish, and I might not even know totally what they say, but I still burst into tears. What is that? It's the sound and the fury of it. The emotion is in the bars of the cage itself, but I can see both at the same time. That's the goal of the reader, to witness both of that and to feel life moving through you. I'm convinced about that. Louisville, here we got this little thing going on down here with lots of room. It was good because I feel like I've moved here actually at a good time. And it'll grow organically. I mean, there's people who are interested in publishing here, like, you know, making new publications. We've had some already, but I mean, there's so much to grow, you know. So I'm interested in publishing. I'm interested in having readings. A lot of people are. I'm feeling like it's going to get a push here in the next couple of years because some new people have come in and they're very excited. And I like that kind of person, man. That's the person I respond to, you know. So I want to be with that person and work with them. And I think you'll see a lot of new stuff coming up in Louisville for sure. People want to be a part of that stuff because that's their community. This is our poetry. And I'm hoping, you know, I would like to see a world where, you know, poetry wasn't always national/international/cosmopolitan, but rather this is our Louisville poetry. And we're going to speak from here. And this is what our truth looks like. And it's different from your truth in Brooklyn, your truth in Chicago, your truth in, you know, Madrid, whatever it may be. And that's what's going to, I think, make it really magic, at least for me. That's what I'd like to do. L. Smith Fellowship, yes. It made me feel appreciated. It helped me get through school. You know, it helped me pay for the rent. I mean, it helped me write one of my books. But, I mean, any sort of award is really just a form of recognition, you know. And it opened up a few doors, too, because, of course, I met other people who'd won it. You know, we were all invited to Frankfurt and got to meet just totally different artists who are now all Facebook friends, whatever it may be. And it was kind of cool, too, because I was sort of new to Kentucky. You know, I'd been here for 3 years. And I was included somehow. And I mean, I got to say, like, you know, any sort of poetry award with money is always welcomed because, you know, unlike other writing, it's just simply not rewarded in the same way. Poetry is not a reward-driven enterprise. You know, as an art, it's fulfilling in and of itself, and we all know that. But I often think about places like Ireland where, you know, writers are given major stipends just for being writers. And places in South America, is my understanding, it's the same thing. The level of respect is equated with economic realities. You know, I mean, we're going to support you because you're our poet. You know, you're doing something that's important. And that's what I appreciate probably the most, is just being respected for that. It's hard work, you know. I'm trying to get down to some sort of truth that might be helpful and healing for the world, let alone me. That's really what's driving me now, man. That's my main thing, is how can I use my words to help, to heal, and to offer some sort of vision of this. This is a way of sanity. Eastern thought has always been for me a way to just calm down. The Western thought really is about the Western myths. My daughter right now is reading, it's around here somewhere, there it is. She's reading all these fairy tales. My daughter loves these. She loves The Princess and the Pea, which is about sensitivity. She loves The Emperor's New Clothes, which is about, just being fooled. Rapunzel, Jack and the Beanstalk. She loves, and I love it too, The Snow Queen. The Snow Queen is the story of my life at this point right now. And it's great because the myths and the fairy tales are framing my journey, which means they're framing my poems. Another simple way is the Great Winnie the Pooh, as A.A. Milne and Winnie the Pooh, which are one of the greatest things ever written. All of those, Winnie the Pooh and House of Pooh Corner. Winnie the Pooh says, "Poetry and hums aren't things you get. They're things that get you. And the best you can do is go where they'll find you." I started actually also recently writing about my daughter, writing to my daughter, or even writing from my daughter, But yeah, these poems started coming out. I mean, being a dad is a whole nother world, I would want the poems for my daughter to be I want them to be perfect. They got to be something great. So this is something I've started on. It's something I'll continue when I get moved into that new house with her, so we can begin to build a life together. And I want to speak from that life and maybe write about the things we live so that she'll always remember. My first book of poems is dedicated to her. I think it says to Tegan for someday, something like that, so she'll know this is who my dad was.